Tonight, we're going to travel together to an ancient world, a world of golden cities, mighty kings, and mysteries that changed history forever. But this isn't just any story. This is a story about what happens when we think we're invincible, about what happens when pride takes over, and most importantly, about how even the mightiest can fall, yet find their way back. So, take a deep breath. Let your shoulders relax. Get comfortable. This story will be here with you for the next few hours, and there's nowhere else you need to be. Close your eyes if you'd like, or let them rest softly on the screen. Listen to the rhythm of the words. Let them carry you away from your worries, away from the stress of today, and into a world that existed thousands of years ago. Are you ready? Good. Let's begin. Imagine, if you will, the desert wind blowing across endless sands. Feel it on your skin, warm during the day, cool at night. Hear it whisper through ancient ruins and towering walls. Smell the exotic spices carried through marketplace streets, mixed with the scent of olive oil lamps burning in the evening. This is Babylon, the greatest city the world had ever seen. But before we enter those gates, I want you to think about something. Have you ever felt powerful? Maybe you accomplished something great at work. Maybe you won a competition. Maybe you built something with your own hands and felt proud of it. That feeling is natural. It's human. But what happens when that feeling grows too big? What happens when we start to believe that we're the only reason for our success? That we don't need anyone or anything else? Keep that question in your mind as we walk through this story together, because the king we're about to meet learned the answer to that question in the hardest way possible. And if you're enjoying this journey so far, do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button. Why? Because stories like these take time to create, and your support helps us bring you more content that helps you relax, learn, and drift into peaceful sleep. Plus, you'll never miss another journey through history. Now, let's step through the gates of Babylon. The year is around 600 BC. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange, purple, and deep red. The massive walls of the city rise before us like mountains made by human hands. Can you see them? They're so thick that chariots can race along the top, so high that they seem to touch the clouds. And covering them, catching the last light of day, are thousands of blue glazed tiles, decorated with golden lions and dragons. These walls protect something magnificent, something that would make any modern city look plain in comparison. And at the heart of it all sits a man on a golden throne, a man who believes he is the greatest ruler who ever lived. His name is Nabucodonosor, but he won't always sit on that throne. Soon, very soon, his world is about to turn upside down. And the journey from his golden palace to the muddy fields where he'll eat grass like an animal is one of the most powerful stories ever told. So stay with me, stay curious, because what's coming next will surprise you, challenge you, and maybe, just maybe, teach you something about your own life. Sweet dreams are made of stories like these. And this one is just beginning. Chapter 1: The Golden City. Let me paint you a picture of Babylon. Close your eyes and imagine the most beautiful place you've ever seen. Maybe it's a beach with crystal clear water. Maybe it's a mountain peak covered in snow. Maybe it's a garden filled with flowers of every color. Now multiply that beauty by 1,000. That's Babylon. The city sits on both sides of the Euphrates River, which flows through it like a ribbon of silver. The water is the lifeblood of the city, bringing cool relief from the desert heat and carrying boats loaded with goods from distant lands. On the western bank stands the royal palace. It's not just one building, but a complex of structures, courtyards, and gardens that covers acres of land. The walls are made of mud brick, but you'd never know it because they're covered with glazed tiles that shine like jewels in the sun. Blue tiles with golden animals, red tiles with white flowers, green tiles with yellow stars. Every surface tells a story. And then there are the hanging gardens. Perhaps you've heard of them. They're one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, though some scholars today debate if they really existed. But in our story, they're very real. Imagine terraces rising high into the sky, each level covered with trees, flowers, and plants from every corner of the known world. Water flows down through channels, creating small waterfalls and pools. Birds nest in the branches. The air smells like jasmine and roses. It's paradise on earth, built by human hands. King Nebuchadnezzar built these gardens for his wife, who came from the green mountains of Media and missed her homeland. Every time she felt homesick, she could walk through these gardens and remember where she came from. That's the kind of power Nebuchadnezzar had. If his wife was sad, he could move mountains, or at least build something that looked like them. But the gardens weren't the only amazing thing in Babylon. The city had temples that reached toward the sky, marketplaces that never slept, and streets filled with people from 100 different nations. There were Egyptians in their white linen robes, Phoenicians with purple-dyed cloth, Persians with their curved swords, Greeks with their philosophy and wine, Syrians, Arabians, Medes, Elamites. Everyone came to Babylon because it was the center of the world, and ruling over all of this, sitting on his throne in the great palace, was Nebuchadnezzar. He was a man in his prime, strong, intelligent, ruthless when he needed to be. He had conquered cities, expanded his empire, and crushed anyone who dared to stand against him. His empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, from the mountains of Armenia to the deserts of Arabia. When he gave an order, millions of people obeyed. When he declared war, armies marched. When he demanded tribute, gold and silver poured into his treasury. He had everything a man could want: wealth, power, respect, fear. His name was known in every corner of the world. But there was something else about Nebuchadnezzar, something that would become very important to our story. He was proud, not just confident, not just self-assured. Proud in a way that made him believe he was almost like a god himself. When he looked out from his palace balcony over the city, he didn't think, "I'm lucky to rule such a place." He thought, "I built this. I made this happen. This is all because of me." And that pride, like a tiny crack in a massive dam, would eventually break wide open and flood his entire life. But Nebuchadnezzar didn't know that yet. Right now, he was just enjoying his power. Right now, everything seemed perfect. Among the thousands of people living in Babylon, there was a special group that caught the king's attention. They were captives from Jerusalem, brought to Babylon after Nebuchadnezzar had conquered their city years before. Most captives became slaves, working in the fields or building projects. But Nebuchadnezzar was smart. He knew that some of the conquered people might have skills he could use. So he ordered his servants to bring him the best and brightest young men from Jerusalem. They needed to be healthy, handsome, intelligent, and quick to learn. They would be trained in the language and customs of Babylon. They would serve in the royal court. They would become Babylonian in every way, except one. They would never forget where they came from or who their God was. Among these young men were 4 friends: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The Babylonians gave them new names. Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah became Shadrach, Mishael became Meshach, Azariah became Abednego. New names for a new life. But inside, they were still the same people with the same faith. These 4 young men were different from the others. They refused to eat the rich food and wine from the king's table because it went against their beliefs. Instead, they asked for simple food, vegetables and water. The guard in charge of them was worried. What if they got sick or weak? The king would have his head. But Daniel convinced him to try it for 10 days. If they looked unhealthy after that, they would eat the king's food. 10 days passed. When the guard checked on them, he was amazed. Daniel and his friends looked healthier and stronger than all the other young men who ate the royal food. It was their first miracle, though a quiet one. God was already watching over them. Now, here's something to think about as you rest. Why do you think these 4 young men refused the king's food? It wasn't just about following rules. It was about remembering who they were. In a foreign land, surrounded by strange gods and customs, they held on to their identity. They held on to their faith. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone around you was doing something and you felt like you should do it too, even though it didn't feel right? That pressure is real. These young men felt it, but they chose differently. And that choice, that small act of courage, would set the stage for everything that came next. If you're finding this story interesting, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps others discover this story too. And trust me, what's coming next is even more incredible. Because very soon, the king is going to have a dream. A dream so disturbing, so mysterious, that no one in his entire kingdom will be able to explain it, except one person. And when that dream is revealed, it will shake the very foundations of Nebuchadnezzar's world. But we'll get to that in a moment. For now, just breathe, relax, let the ancient world surround you. Let yourself drift on the waters of time, floating back to an age of wonders and mysteries. The night is young, and our story has only just begun. Chapter 2: The Dream That Changed Everything. One night, in the depths of his palace, King Nebuchadnezzar couldn't sleep. Have you ever had one of those nights? When you lie in bed, tossing and turning, unable to shut off your mind? That's where the king was. But this wasn't just restlessness. Something was disturbing him at a deeper level. His mind was filled with images he couldn't quite grasp, shapes and symbols that danced just out of reach. Finally, sleep came. But instead of peace, it brought him something else. A dream, a powerful, vivid dream that felt more real than waking life. He saw something standing before him, something massive and terrifying and beautiful all at once. It was a statue of a man, but unlike any statue he'd ever seen. The head was made of pure gold, gleaming and perfect. The chest and arms were made of silver, shining like moonlight. The belly and thighs were made of bronze, strong and solid. The legs were made of iron, powerful and unyielding. But the feet were strange. They were made of partly iron and partly clay, as if someone had tried to mix two things that didn't belong together. Nebuchadnezzar stared at this statue in his dream, trying to understand what it meant. And then something happened. A stone appeared. But this wasn't just any stone. It wasn't cut by human hands. It wasn't carved or shaped. It just existed, as if it had always been there. And this stone flew through the air and struck the statue on its feet, the feet of iron and clay. The moment the stone hit, everything changed. The feet shattered, and when the feet broke, the entire statue collapsed. The iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold, all of it broke into pieces so small they were like dust, like powder. And then the wind came, a great wind that swept all the dust away until there was nothing left of the statue at all. Not a trace, not a memory. But the stone that had struck the statue began to grow. It grew and grew until it became a huge mountain that filled the entire earth. And then Nebuchadnezzar woke up. He sat up in bed, breathing hard, his heart pounding. Sweat covered his forehead. The dream had felt so real, so important. Like it was trying to tell him something crucial about his life, his kingdom, his future. But what did it mean? He called for his servants immediately, even though it was the middle of the night. "Bring me my wise men," he commanded. "Bring me my magicians, my enchanters, my sorcerers. Bring them all, now." Within the hour, the throne room was filled with the most learned men in Babylon. They stood before the king, wondering why they'd been summoned in the middle of the night. Nebuchadnezzar looked at them with fierce eyes. "I've had a dream," he said, "and I need you to tell me what it means." The wise men bowed. "O king, live forever," they said, using the traditional greeting. "Tell us your dream, and we will interpret it for you." But Nebuchadnezzar shook his head. "No," he said. "You tell me what I dreamed, and then tell me what it means." The room went silent. The wise men looked at each other in confusion and fear. "But your majesty," one of them said carefully, "that's impossible. No king in history has ever asked such a thing. How can we tell you what you dreamed? Only you know that." Nebuchadnezzar's face hardened. "Here's my decree," he said. "If you can't tell me my dream and its interpretation, I'll have you all cut into pieces. Your houses will be turned into piles of rubble. But if you can tell me the dream and explain it, I'll give you gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and what it means." The wise men were terrified now. They tried again. "Please, your majesty, just tell us the dream. No one on earth can do what you're asking. No one except the gods. And they don't live among humans." That was the wrong thing to say. Nebuchadnezzar exploded in fury. "You're all useless," he shouted. "You've been lying to me all along, haven't you? You've been making up interpretations and telling me what I want to hear. Well, now I'll know if you're real or fake. Tell me the dream or die." He called for his guards. "Execute all the wise men of Babylon," he commanded. "Every single one, starting tomorrow morning." The guards went out to carry out the order. They went from house to house, arresting the wise men, the enchanters, the magicians, and on their list was a young man named Daniel. Now, Daniel hadn't been at the palace that night. He didn't even know about the king's dream. So when the guards came to arrest him, he was confused. "Wait," he said to the commander of the guard, whose name was Arioch. "Why is the king doing this? What happened?" Arioch explained the situation. The king had a dream. The wise men couldn't tell him what it was. Now everyone was going to die. Daniel stayed calm. "Give me some time," he said. "Let me go to the king. I'll tell him what his dream means." Arioch agreed. He took Daniel to the palace. Daniel stood before Nebuchadnezzar and bowed. "Your Majesty," he said, "please give me a little time. I promise I'll tell you what your dream means." Something about Daniel's confidence impressed the king. "Fine," he said. "You have until tomorrow night. If you fail, you die with the rest." Daniel went home to his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. "We need to pray," he told them. "We need to ask God to show me the king's dream, because if he doesn't, we're all dead." That night, the 4 young men prayed like they'd never prayed before. They asked God for mercy. They asked him to reveal the mystery. They trusted that he would answer. And in the night, while Daniel slept, God gave him a vision. He showed Daniel exactly what Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed. He showed him the statue, the stone, everything, and he showed him what it all meant. When Daniel woke up, he was filled with joy and relief. "Thank you, God," he prayed. "You reveal deep and hidden things. You know what's in the darkness, and light lives with you. Thank you for showing me the king's dream." The next morning, Daniel went back to the palace. He found Arioch and said, "Don't kill the wise men. Take me to the king. I'll tell him what he wants to know." Arioch rushed Daniel into the throne room. Nebuchadnezzar was sitting there, tired and frustrated. "Are you able to tell me what I dreamed?" he asked Daniel. "Can you really do this?" Daniel looked at the king with calm, clear eyes. "Your Majesty," he said, "no wise man, no enchanter, no magician can reveal the mystery you've asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has shown me what you dreamed." Here's where I want you to pause and think. Imagine being Daniel in that moment. The most powerful man in the world is staring at you. Your life and the lives of your friends depend on what you say next. There's no room for error, no second chances. Would you have the courage to stand there? Would you trust that God would come through? Remember this moment, because you'll need that answer later in our story. If you're still with me, and I hope you are, leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to trust in something bigger than yourself when everything was on the line? I'd love to hear your story. Now let's find out what Daniel told the king, because what he's about to say will change everything. Chapter 3: The Golden Statue and the Fiery Test. Daniel took a breath and began to speak. "Your Majesty," he said, "in your dream, you saw a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance." Nebuchadnezzar leaned forward. Yes, that was exactly what he'd seen. Daniel continued. The head of the statue was made of pure gold. Its chest and arms were silver. Its belly and thighs were bronze. Its legs were iron, and its feet were partly iron and partly clay. The king's eyes widened. How could Daniel know this? He hadn't told anyone. "While you were watching," Daniel went on, "a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, clay, bronze, silver and gold were all broken to pieces at the same time. They became like dust on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth." Perfect. That was the dream exactly. Nebuchadnezzar could hardly believe it. "Now," Daniel said, "here's what it means. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion, power, strength, and glory. He has made you ruler over all of them. You are that head of gold." Nebuchadnezzar felt a surge of pride. Yes, he was the head of gold. That made sense. But Daniel wasn't finished. "After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. Iron breaks and smashes everything, and this kingdom will crush and break all the others." The king's pride began to fade as he listened. "Just as you saw that the feet and toes were partly clay and partly iron," Daniel continued, "so this kingdom will be divided. It will have some of the strength of iron, but it will also be brittle, like clay. And just as iron and clay don't mix, the people of this kingdom won't stay united." Then Daniel came to the most important part. "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will crush all those other kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself last forever. That's the meaning of the rock that was cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands." Silence filled the throne room. Nebuchadnezzar understood now. He was the golden head, but he was just the beginning. Other kingdoms would come, and eventually all human kingdoms would fall before an eternal kingdom set up by God himself. For a moment, the king was humbled. He got up from his throne, walked down to Daniel, and fell on his face before him. "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings," he said. He showered Daniel with gifts. He made him a high ruler in Babylon. He promoted his 3 friends as well. For a little while, it seemed like Nebuchadnezzar had learned his lesson. But pride is a stubborn thing. It doesn't die easily. Months passed, maybe years, and slowly the king's attitude changed. He kept thinking about that statue, about how he was the head of gold, about how his kingdom would be followed by lesser kingdoms. Why should there be lesser kingdoms after mine, he thought. Why should my kingdom ever end? I'm the greatest king who ever lived. My kingdom should last forever. And that's when he came up with an idea that would challenge God himself. He ordered his workers to build a statue, but not just any statue. This statue would be entirely made of gold, from head to toe. No silver, no bronze, no iron, no clay, just gold. It would stand 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. It would be placed on the plain of Dura, outside the city, where everyone could see it. And when it was finished, Nebuchadnezzar sent out a decree. All the rulers, governors, officials, and important people from every part of his empire must come to the dedication of the statue. On the appointed day, thousands of people gathered on the plain. The golden statue towered above them, gleaming in the sunlight. It was impressive, terrifying even. A herald stepped forward and shouted, "People of all nations and languages, listen. When you hear the sound of the musical instruments, you must fall down and worship the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Anyone who doesn't fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." A blazing furnace had been prepared nearby. Its flames were visible, and its heat could be felt even from a distance. This was not an empty threat. The music began. Horns, flutes, lyres, harps, pipes, and all kinds of instruments played together, and like a wave, the crowd fell to the ground, faces in the dust, worshipping the golden statue. Everyone bowed, everyone except 3 men. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood tall. Their eyes were not on the statue, but on heaven. They would not bow to an idol. They would not worship anything or anyone except their God. Some officials noticed. They ran to the king, eager to report. "Your Majesty," they said, "there are 3 Jewish men who refuse to worship your statue. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They don't respect your gods or your image." Nebuchadnezzar was furious. How dare they disobey him? He had them brought before him. "Is it true?" he demanded. "Do you refuse to worship my statue? I'll give you one more chance. When the music plays again, fall down and worship. If you don't, you'll be thrown into the furnace, and then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" The 3 young men stood calm and firm. Shadrach spoke for all of them. "Your Majesty, we don't need to defend ourselves before you. If we're thrown into the furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it, and he will rescue us from your hand. But even if he doesn't, we want you to know that we will never worship your gods or your golden statue." Think about that for a moment. Even if he doesn't. They weren't just trusting God to save them. They were trusting him even if he chose not to. That's faith at its deepest level. Have you ever had faith like that? Faith that says, even if things don't go the way I want, I'm still going to trust. If this story is speaking to you, hit that subscribe button. Because we're about to see one of the most incredible miracles in all of history. Nebuchadnezzar was so angry that his face turned red. He ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. He commanded his strongest soldiers to tie up the 3 men and throw them into the flames. The soldiers obeyed. They tied up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and dragged them toward the furnace. But the fire was so hot that the soldiers themselves were killed by the flames before they could even throw the 3 men in. The 3 men fell into the furnace, bound and helpless. The crowd watched in horror. Surely this was the end of them. But then something impossible happened. Nebuchadnezzar suddenly jumped to his feet. "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them into the fire?" he asked his advisors. "Yes, Your Majesty," they replied. "Then why do I see 4 men walking around in the fire?" the king shouted. "They're not tied up, they're not hurt, and the 4th one looks like a son of the gods." Everyone rushed to see, and there, in the middle of the blazing furnace, were 4 figures walking calmly through the flames. Their clothes weren't burning, their hair wasn't singed, they weren't even sweating, and the 4th figure shone with the light that didn't come from the fire. Nebuchadnezzar approached as close as he dared to the furnace. "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out," he called. The 3 men walked out of the furnace. The crowd surrounded them, examining them. Not a hair on their heads was burned. Their robes weren't scorched. They didn't even smell like smoke. The king was overwhelmed. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," he declared. "He sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied my command. They were willing to give up their lives rather than worship any god except their own God." He made a new decree. No one in his kingdom was allowed to speak against the God of the Hebrews, because no other God could rescue like this. Once again, Nebuchadnezzar seemed to have learned his lesson. He had witnessed a miracle. He had seen God's power. But deep down, his pride still lived, and it was growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to show itself again. That moment was coming soon, very soon, and when it arrived, it would bring the king to his knees in a way he never imagined. What do you think? Can pride really be defeated, or does it always find a way to come back? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious what you think. Now, let's move on to the next chapter, because the most dramatic part of our story is about to begin. Chapter 4. The Tree That Touched the Sky. Time passed. Babylon continued to thrive under Nebuchadnezzar's rule. The city grew richer. The empire expanded. The king's fame spread to every corner of the known world. But success has a way of feeding pride, and Nebuchadnezzar's pride had grown into something monstrous. He walked through his palace, looking at everything he had built: the walls, the gates, the gardens, the temples. "I did this," he would think. "I made this happen. I am the greatest." God watched, and God knew it was time to act. Time to teach the king a lesson he would never forget. One night, Nebuchadnezzar had another dream. Once again, it was vivid and disturbing. Once again, he woke up troubled, knowing it meant something important. This time, he called for Daniel right away. He trusted Daniel now. He knew that Daniel's God gave him the ability to understand mysteries. When Daniel arrived, the king told him the dream. "I saw a tree," he said. "It was standing in the middle of the earth, and it was enormous. It grew large and strong. Its top reached the sky, and it could be seen from the ends of the earth." Daniel listened carefully. "The tree had beautiful leaves and abundant fruit," the king continued. "It provided food for everyone. Wild animals found shelter under it. Birds nested in its branches. Every creature was fed from this tree. Then, in my dream, I saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called out in a loud voice, "Cut down the tree and trim off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from its branches." Daniel's face became serious as he listened. "But," Nebuchadnezzar went on, "the messenger said to leave the stump with its roots in the ground. Bind it with iron and bronze. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the wild animals. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him." The king looked at Daniel with worried eyes. "What does it mean?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was full of sadness. "My lord," he said, "I wish the dream applied to your enemies instead of to you. But I must tell you the truth." "Tell me," the king said. "The tree you saw is you, your majesty. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky. Your dominion extends to distant parts of the earth." Nebuchadnezzar nodded. That part made sense. "But," Daniel continued, his voice gentle, "you saw a holy one commanding that the tree be cut down. This is what it means. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like an ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes." The king's face went pale. "However," Daniel added quickly, "the command to leave the stump with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules." Then Daniel did something unexpected. He gave the king advice. "Therefore, your majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right. Renounce your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. Perhaps then your prosperity will continue." It was a warning, a chance to change, an opportunity to humble himself before it was too late. But Nebuchadnezzar didn't listen. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. An entire year passed, and nothing happened. The king began to think that maybe the dream didn't mean anything after all. Maybe Daniel was wrong this time. His pride grew even stronger. He began to think he was invincible, untouchable, above even the warnings of dreams. Then, exactly 12 months after the dream, something happened. Nebuchadnezzar was walking on the roof of his royal palace. It was late afternoon. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over the entire city. From where he stood, he could see everything. The walls, the gates, the hanging gardens, the temples, the homes, the streets filled with people. It was beautiful, magnificent, the greatest city on earth, and the king's chest swelled with pride. He spread his arms wide and declared in a loud voice, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" The words were still on his lips when something happened. A voice came from heaven. This is what is decreed for you. King Nebuchadnezzar, your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like an ox. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and gives them to anyone he wishes. Immediately, the prophecy was fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar's mind snapped. His sanity disappeared like smoke in the wind. He fell to his hands and knees. He tore off his royal robes. He looked at the people around him with wild animal eyes. The servants tried to help him, but he growled and snarled at them. He scrambled away, running on all fours like a beast. The guards tried to restrain him, but he was too strong, too wild. He broke away and ran out of the palace, through the gates, and into the fields beyond the city. And there, in those fields, the greatest king on earth became less than human. Now, I want you to imagine this. Really picture it in your mind. A man who had everything: wealth, power, glory, respect. A man who ruled over millions. A man who thought he was almost like a god. And in one moment, all of that was stripped away. In one moment, he lost his mind, his throne, his dignity, his humanity. Why? Because he couldn't say one simple thing. Thank you. I didn't do this alone. God gave me this. That's all it would have taken. A little humility, a little gratitude. But pride wouldn't let him do it. Have you ever been too proud to say thank you? Too proud to admit you needed help? Too proud to give credit where credit was due? Think about that as you drift towards sleep tonight. Think about the times when pride got in your way. And think about what it cost you. If you're finding this story meaningful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who might be struggling with pride. Someone who needs to remember that we're all human, no matter how successful we become. Now, let's follow Nebuchadnezzar into the wilderness. Let's see what happens when a king becomes a beast. Chapter 5. 7 years of darkness. The fields around Babylon were home to all kinds of animals: deer, wild oxen, goats, birds, and insects. The grass grew thick and green near the river. Trees provided shade from the hot sun. And now, living among these animals was Nebuchadnezzar. But he wasn't the Nebuchadnezzar we knew. His mind was gone. He didn't remember being a king. He didn't remember his palace, his throne, his empire. He didn't even remember being human. He dropped to his hands and knees and began to eat grass like an ox. He drank from streams. He slept on the ground. When the dew fell at night, it soaked his hair and his skin. Time passed. His appearance began to change. His fingernails grew long and curved, like the claws of a bird. His hair grew wild and tangled, thick as feathers. His skin darkened from constant exposure to the sun. His body became thin and hard from living outdoors. People who saw him from a distance didn't recognize him. They thought he was some kind of wild man, a madman who lived in the fields. Some were afraid of him. Others felt sorry for him. But no one knew he was the king. Back in Babylon, the palace was in turmoil. What do you do when your king loses his mind? The officials and advisors had to make decisions. They couldn't let the empire fall apart. So they ruled in the king's name, keeping the kingdom running, hoping that somehow, someday, he would recover. They kept his condition a secret from the outside world. Other nations couldn't know that Babylon's king was living like an animal. It would invite invasion. It would cause chaos. So they waited and prayed and hoped. Meanwhile, out in the fields, Nebuchadnezzar lived in a fog. Days blurred into nights. Seasons changed. Summer heat gave way to autumn coolness, then winter cold, then spring warmth. Over and over again. He didn't count the days. He couldn't. He had no sense of time, no memories, no thoughts beyond basic survival. Where is food? Where is water? Where is shelter from the storm? He was alive, but he wasn't really living. He existed, but without purpose, without meaning, without hope. Have you ever felt like that? Not literally living like an animal, but feeling lost. Feeling like you're just going through the motions, day after day, without really knowing why. That's what rock bottom feels like. That's what it's like when pride takes everything from you and leaves you with nothing. But here's the thing about rock bottom. When you're there, there's only one way to go: up. 7 times past. In the original language, this probably means 7 years, though it could mean 7 seasons or 7 periods of time. However long it was, it felt like an eternity. But God hadn't forgotten Nebuchadnezzar. He was watching, waiting for the right moment, the moment when the lesson would finally sink in. Think about this. God could have just destroyed Nebuchadnezzar. He could have killed him, removed him from power, and put someone else on the throne. But he didn't. He humbled him. He broke him down. And then, when the time was right, he would build him back up. Because that's what God does. He doesn't just punish. He transforms. He doesn't just tear down. He rebuilds. During those 7 years, something was happening deep inside Nebuchadnezzar's mind. Even though he couldn't think clearly, even though his reason was gone, somewhere deep in his soul, a change was taking place. The pride that had filled him was being emptied out. The arrogance that had blinded him was being washed away. The self-worship that had consumed him was being burned up. It was like a refining fire. The dross was being removed, leaving only what was pure and true. And then, one morning, something shifted. Nebuchadnezzar was lying in the grass, as he had done for countless mornings before. The sun was rising, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. Birds were singing. The dew was cold on his skin. And for the first time in 7 years, a human thought entered his mind. He blinked. He looked around. He saw the trees, the grass, the sky. But this time, he really saw them. Not with the blank stare of an animal, but with the understanding of a man. He sat up slowly. His body ached. His hair hung in his face. His hands, he noticed with horror, had nails like claws. Memories began to flood back. The palace, the throne, the empire, the dream, Daniel's warning, his boast on the rooftop, the voice from heaven. "Oh no," he whispered. His voice was hoarse from years of not speaking. "What have I become?" And then he did something he hadn't done in a very, very long time. Something he should have done years before. He looked up at the sky and he prayed, not a proud prayer, not a demanding prayer, a humble, broken, desperate prayer. God, he said, his voice cracking, you are sovereign. You rule over all kingdoms. You give power to whomever you choose. I was nothing without you. I am nothing without you. Forgive me. Please, forgive me. The moment he said those words, something miraculous happened. His sanity returned completely. The fog in his mind lifted. His reason came back. He was human again. He stood up on 2 feet for the first time in 7 years. His legs were shaky, but they held. He looked at his hands, his body, his reflection in a pool of water. He looked like a wild man, but inside he was a new person. Now, here's the question that I want you to think about. What do you think caused the change? Was it just the passage of time? Or was it the moment when he finally humbled himself? I think you know the answer. Time alone doesn't change people. Suffering alone doesn't transform them. It's the choice to humble yourself, to admit you were wrong, to surrender your pride. That's what brings true change. If this story is touching your heart, leave a like. Let me know you're still with me, because we're about to see one of the most beautiful restorations in all of history. Nebuchadnezzar began walking, slowly, painfully, but with determination. He walked away from the fields where he had lived like an animal. He walked toward the city, toward home. And as he walked, he kept praying, thanking God, praising God, acknowledging that everything he had once been, everything he had once had, was a gift. Not something he earned, not something he deserved, a gift. The guards at the gates didn't recognize him at first. They thought he was a beggar, or maybe a lunatic, but something about his eyes made them pause. I am Nebuchadnezzar, he said simply. Take me to the palace. The guards looked at each other in shock. Could it be? After all these years? They brought him to the palace. Word spread quickly. Daniel came. The king's advisors came. His family came. When they saw him, they knew. Despite his appearance, despite everything, they could see it was really him. Their king had returned, but he wasn't the same king who had left. That king was proud, arrogant, self-centered. This king was humble, grateful, transformed. They cleaned him up, cut his hair and nails, dressed him in royal robes, and brought him back to his throne. But before he sat down, Nebuchadnezzar did something no king had ever done. He fell to his knees in front of his people and praised God. I give thanks to the Most High, he said. I praise and glorify him who lives forever. His dominion is eternal. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" The people listened in amazement. This wasn't the old Nebuchadnezzar. This was someone new, someone better. At the same time that my sanity returned, he continued, my honor and splendor were restored for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. He stood up and looked at everyone assembled before him. "Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble." Do you see what happened? He didn't just get his kingdom back. He got something better. He got wisdom. He got humility. He got a relationship with the true king. Let's pause here and rest for a moment. Let these words sink in. Let this transformation settle into your heart. Because this is the message of the story. It doesn't matter how high you climb. It doesn't matter how much power you have. If you walk in pride, God can humble you. But if you humble yourself, God can restore you and make you even greater than you were before. Not greater in the world's eyes, greater in the ways that actually matter, wiser, kinder, more compassionate, more aware of what's truly important. Take a deep breath. Let yourself feel the weight of this moment in the story. The king has been restored. The lesson has been learned. The transformation is complete. Or is it? Is there more to learn, more to discover? Stay with me. We're almost to the end, but the best part is still ahead. Chapter 6. The Moment of Awakening. Let's go back to that moment when Nebuchadnezzar's mind returned to him. I want you to really understand what happened, because it's one of the most powerful parts of the entire story. Imagine being trapped in darkness for 7 years, unable to think clearly, unable to remember who you are. Living like an animal, driven only by instinct and survival. And then, suddenly, a light switches on. Consciousness returns. Memories flood back. You remember everything. Who you were, what you did, how you fell. That moment must have been overwhelming, terrifying, humiliating, but also, strangely, liberating. Because in that moment, Nebuchadnezzar finally understood something he'd never understood before. He wasn't the center of the universe. He wasn't the most important person in the world. He was just a man, a human being, created by God, given gifts by God, sustained by God. All those years of thinking he was self-made, self-sufficient, self-important, they were washed away in an instant of clarity. Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment when everything suddenly became clear? When you finally understood something that had been hidden from you? Maybe it wasn't as dramatic as Nebuchadnezzar's awakening. Maybe it was quieter, a realization that came while you were lying in bed at night, or driving alone in your car, or sitting by yourself in a park. But when it came, it changed everything. You couldn't go back to seeing things the old way. You couldn't unknow what you now knew. That's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. He couldn't go back to being the proud king he used to be. He had seen too much, experienced too much, lost too much. When he raised his eyes to heaven and acknowledged God's sovereignty, it wasn't just words. It was a complete surrender, a total transformation of his heart and mind. And that's when God restored him. Notice the order. First, humility, then restoration. Not the other way around. God didn't restore Nebuchadnezzar's mind and then wait to see if he would humble himself. He waited for the humility first, Because without humility, restoration would have been meaningless. Nebuchadnezzar would have just gone back to his old ways. But with humility, restoration became something beautiful, something transformative, something that made him better than he'd ever been before. The Bible tells us that when Nebuchadnezzar was restored to his throne, he became even greater than he had been. Now, that might seem strange. How could he be greater after spending 7 years as a madman? But think about it. His greatness before was just external. Big buildings, large armies, lots of wealth. Impressive, yes, but not truly great. His greatness after was internal: wisdom, humility, understanding. A proper perspective on life and power and purpose. That's true greatness. And you know what? People recognized it. His advisors and nobles sought him out. They wanted him back, not because they were afraid of him, but because they respected him. The old Nebuchadnezzar ruled through fear and intimidation. The new Nebuchadnezzar ruled through wisdom and justice. Which kind of leader would you rather follow? Which kind of person would you rather be? If you're still listening, still thinking, still journeying through this story with me, thank you. Please, take a moment and leave a comment. Tell me what part of this story has impacted you the most. I read every comment, and I'd love to hear from you. Now, let's talk about what Nebuchadnezzar did after his restoration. Because his response to what happened is almost as important as what happened itself. He could have kept quiet about it. He could have been embarrassed. After all, he'd spent 7 years eating grass like an animal. Not exactly the kind of thing you want people to know about. But instead, he did something remarkable. He wrote it all down and sent it out as a proclamation to his entire empire. To the nations and peoples of every language who live in all the earth, may you prosper greatly. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't trying to hide what happened. Instead, he was using his story as a testimony, as a warning, as a lesson for others. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. Do you see what he's doing? He's pointing people away from himself and toward God. The old Nebuchadnezzar would have built monuments to his own glory. The new Nebuchadnezzar was building a testimony to God's glory. That's the mark of true transformation. When you stop trying to make yourself look good and start trying to make God look good. In his proclamation, Nebuchadnezzar told the whole story: the dream, the warning, his boast, the voice from heaven, the 7 years of madness, the moment of restoration. He left nothing out. Why? Because he wanted people to learn from his mistake. He wanted them to understand that pride leads to destruction, but humility leads to restoration. He was, in a sense, sacrificing his reputation to save others from the same fate. That takes courage. That takes genuine humility. And here's what's really beautiful. His testimony has lasted for thousands of years. We're reading it right now. Millions of people throughout history have read it. And countless people have been warned, encouraged, and transformed by it. Nebuchadnezzar's greatest legacy wasn't the buildings he constructed or the battles he won. It was the story of how God humbled him and restored him. That's what people remember. That's what still matters today. So let me ask you this. What will your legacy be? What story will people tell about you after you're gone? Will they talk about how much money you made? How impressive your achievements were? How successful you appeared? Or will they talk about how you faced your failures with humility? How you learned from your mistakes? How you pointed others towards something greater than yourself? Think about that as you continue this journey tonight. Think about what really matters, what lasts, what has true value. And if you want to be part of leaving a positive legacy right now, hit that share button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Help spread a message that has been changing lives for thousands of years. Now, let's move toward the conclusion of our story, because there are still a few more important lessons to uncover. Chapter 7. A king transformed. The rest of Nebuchadnezzar's reign was different. Very different. The old king had ruled with an iron fist. He demanded worship. He threatened death to anyone who disobeyed. He crushed his enemies without mercy. But the new king ruled with wisdom and justice. He made fair decisions. He protected the weak. He showed mercy. He sought counsel from wise men like Daniel. The change was so dramatic that people talked about it throughout the empire. What happened to the king? They would ask. He's not the same person he used to be. And they were right. He wasn't. He had died, in a sense, and been reborn. The old Nebuchadnezzar was gone. This was someone new. One day, he called Daniel to the palace. They sat together in the same room where, years ago, Daniel had interpreted the dream of the great tree. "Do you remember?" Nebuchadnezzar asked him. "Do you remember warning me, telling me to renounce my sins and show mercy to the oppressed?" Daniel nodded. "I remember, Your Majesty." "I should have listened to you," the king said. "I should have humbled myself then. It would have saved me 7 years of suffering." "But perhaps," Daniel replied gently, "you needed those 7 years to truly learn the lesson. Sometimes we can't learn from words alone. Sometimes we have to experience things ourselves." Nebuchadnezzar thought about that. "You're right," he said. "I wouldn't be who I am now if I hadn't gone through what I went through. As painful as it was, I'm grateful for it. It taught me things I could never have learned any other way." This is a profound truth. Sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our worst experiences. The things that break us can also remake us, if we let them. Nebuchadnezzar had been broken, completely shattered. But in the breaking, something beautiful happened. The shell of pride and arrogance was cracked open, revealing the real person underneath. And that real person, that humble, wise, grateful person, was who he was meant to be all along. He began to make changes in his kingdom. He reviewed the laws and made them more just. He appointed honest judges. He protected the poor from being exploited. He released prisoners who had been unjustly imprisoned. The people noticed. Life in Babylon became better for ordinary citizens. The king wasn't just concerned with his own glory anymore. He was concerned with his people's welfare. He also stopped demanding worship. The golden statue on the plain of Dura was torn down. The furnaces used to threaten people were dismantled. Freedom of religion was allowed throughout the empire. This was revolutionary for the time. Most ancient kings demanded complete loyalty and worship. But Nebuchadnezzar had learned that forced worship was meaningless. True loyalty, true respect, had to be earned. And under his new way of ruling, he earned it. People began to genuinely respect him, not because they were afraid of him, but because he was a good king. Daniel and his 3 friends became his closest advisors. He trusted their wisdom and their integrity. He knew they would always tell him the truth, even when it was hard to hear. "That's what I need," he told them. "People who will be honest with me, who will warn me when I'm going down the wrong path, who will speak truth to power." He established a tradition in his court. Once a year, on the anniversary of his restoration, he would fast and pray. He would remember the 7 years in the wilderness. He would remind himself of the lesson he had learned. And he would invite people to hear his testimony. He would tell his story to young and old, to nobles and servants, to locals and foreigners. "I want everyone to know," he would say, "pride led me to the lowest point of my life, but humility brought me to the highest. Not high in terms of power, but high in terms of purpose and peace." People would listen with tears in their eyes. Some would come to him afterward and confess their own struggles with pride. He would counsel them, sharing the wisdom he had gained through hard experience. "You don't have to learn the way I did," he would tell them. "You can choose humility now, before life forces it on you. Trust me, it's much easier that way." His kingdom prospered under his new leadership. Trade increased, arts flourished, science advanced. Babylon became not just a center of power, but a center of learning and culture. And at the heart of it all was a king who had learned the most important lesson of all, that true greatness comes not from exalting yourself, but from humbling yourself before God. As Nebuchadnezzar grew older, he spent more and more time in reflection and prayer. He would walk through the hanging gardens, the ones he had built for his wife, and marvel at the beauty of creation. "I used to think I created all this," he would say to himself, "but I was wrong. I was just a tool in the Creator's hand. All beauty, all creativity, all power comes from Him." He wrote poems and songs praising God. Some of them were included in Babylonian literature. Centuries later, when archaeologists dug up ancient Babylon, they found inscriptions that scholars believe were written by Nebuchadnezzar himself, acknowledging the sovereignty of the God of heaven. His transformation was complete, and his testimony became one of the most powerful stories in all of human history. Now, as we near the end of our journey together tonight, I want you to think about your own life. Have you been walking in pride? Have you been taking credit for things you didn't accomplish alone? Have you been thinking too highly of yourself? Or maybe you're on the other side. Maybe you've already been humbled. Maybe you've already experienced your own version of 7 years in the wilderness. If so, know this: restoration is possible. Transformation is real. You can come back stronger, wiser, and better than you were before. If this message is resonating with you, please like this video. It helps others find it. And who knows? Your simple click might bring this story to someone who desperately needs to hear it. Let's move into our final chapter. the conclusion of Nebuchadnezzar's story and the beginning of yours. Chapter 8. The Final Wisdom. Nebuchadnezzar's final years were peaceful. He had learned the lesson that eluded so many powerful people throughout history. That power is temporary, but wisdom is eternal. He gathered his children and grandchildren around him and told them his story. He wanted to make sure they understood what he had learned, so they wouldn't have to learn it the hard way. Listen carefully, he would tell them. Everything I'm about to say, I learned through pain and suffering. I pray you'll learn it more easily. He taught them about humility. Never think you're better than others, he said. Yes, you're born into royalty. Yes, you have advantages others don't have. But that doesn't make you superior. It makes you responsible. Use your advantages to help others, not to lord it over them. He taught them about gratitude. Always remember where your blessings come from, he said. Every talent, every opportunity, every success is a gift. Say thank you, mean it, and never take credit for what you didn't do alone. He taught them about wisdom. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, he said. Listen to advice. Don't assume you know everything. The moment you think you have nothing left to learn is the moment you start going backwards. He taught them about faith. There is a God who rules over all, he said. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are deeper than our thoughts. Trust him, even when you don't understand. Especially when you don't understand. Most importantly, he taught them about transformation. People can change, he said. I'm living proof. No matter how far you fall, no matter how much you mess up, it's never too late to turn around and start walking in the right direction. His children listened. Some took his words to heart. Others, sadly, would repeat his mistakes and have to learn the lessons for themselves. That's the way of the world, isn't it? Each generation has to learn some things through their own experience. But the story of Nebuchadnezzar didn't die with him. It was preserved, written down, passed from generation to generation. It became part of the Bible, specifically the book of Daniel, and for thousands of years, people have read it and learned from it. Kings and peasants, rich and poor, young and old. People from every nation and culture. Why has this story lasted so long? Because the lesson is universal. Pride is a human problem. It affects everyone, in every time period, in every place. And the solution is also universal. Humility. Recognizing that we're not self-made. Acknowledging that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. Giving credit where credit is due. When Nebuchadnezzar finally died, he died at peace. He had accomplished much in his life, but his greatest accomplishment wasn't a building or a battle. It was his transformation from a proud king to a humble servant. His funeral was attended by thousands. People came from all over the empire to pay their respects. They mourned, yes, but they also celebrated. Because his life, especially the latter part of it, was a testament to the power of change. Daniel spoke at the funeral. He was old now, but his voice was still strong. King Nebuchadnezzar learned what few people ever learn, he said, that the Most High is sovereign, that pride leads to destruction, but humility leads to honor. That being broken is sometimes necessary to become whole. His story is a gift to all of us, Daniel continued. A warning and an encouragement. A warning to the proud. Humble yourself before you're humbled. An encouragement to the fallen. You can be restored. After the funeral, life in Babylon continued. New kings rose and fell. The empire eventually declined, just as Daniel had prophesied in the dream of the great statue. The golden head gave way to the silver chest, which gave way to the bronze belly, which gave way to the iron legs. Empires rise and fall. That's the nature of human power. But the lessons Nebuchadnezzar learned transcend any single empire. They're eternal truths that apply to all people in all times. So what about you? What will you take from this story? Will you examine your own heart for signs of pride? Will you humble yourself before you're forced to? Will you give thanks for your blessings instead of taking credit for them? Or will you dismiss this story as ancient history, irrelevant to your modern life? The choice is yours. But remember Nebuchadnezzar. Remember the king who thought he was invincible, who walked with beasts, and who found redemption in humility. His story is your story. His struggles are your struggles. His transformation can be your transformation. Before we end, I want to ask you to do something. Take a moment and subscribe to this channel. Why? Because stories matter. Wisdom matters. And the more people who hear these timeless lessons, the better our world becomes. Also, leave a comment. Tell me what you learned from this story. Share your own experiences with pride and humility. Let's create a community of people who are committed to learning and growing and becoming better versions of themselves. And finally, share this video. Send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Post it on social media. Help spread a message that has been changing lives for thousands of years. Now, let's close with the words of Nebuchadnezzar himself, from his proclamation to all nations. How great are God's signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Amen. Conclusion. What this story means for you. As we come to the end of this journey, I want to leave you with some final thoughts. This story of Nebuchadnezzar isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror. When we look at his pride, we see our own. When we see his fall, we recognize our own potential for falling. And when we witness his restoration, we find hope for our own transformation. Every one of us has areas of pride in our lives. Maybe it's pride in our accomplishments. Maybe it's pride in our intelligence or appearance. Maybe it's pride in our status or possessions. And that pride, if left unchecked, will eventually bring us down. Maybe not as dramatically as Nebuchadnezzar, but it will bring us down nonetheless. The question is, will we humble ourselves voluntarily, Or will we wait until life humbles us? I encourage you to choose the first option. Look at your life honestly. Ask yourself, where am I being proud? Where am I taking too much credit? Where am I refusing to acknowledge that I've had help, that I've been blessed, that I'm part of something bigger than myself? And then make a choice. Choose humility. Choose gratitude. Choose to give credit where credit is due. It won't be easy. Pride is stubborn. It fights back. It tells us we deserve all the credit, but resist that voice. Push back against it and choose the path of humility. Because here's what I've learned, and what Nebuchadnezzar learned. Humility doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. It doesn't diminish you. It elevates you. Not in the world's eyes, perhaps, but in the ways that truly matter. Humble people are easier to work with. They're better leaders. They have deeper relationships. They experience more joy and peace. And when they succeed, their success is more meaningful because they know it's not just about them. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, or as you continue your day, carry this story with you. Let it challenge you. Let it inspire you. Let it transform you. Remember the king who walked with beasts and found his humanity in the wilderness. Remember that pride comes before a fall, but humility comes before honor. Remember that it's never too late to change, to grow, to become who you were meant to be. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Thank you for spending these hours exploring an ancient story that still speaks to us today. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Join our community of people who love stories, wisdom, and personal growth. And hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you? What challenged you? What will you do differently because of this story? And share this video. You never know who might need to hear it. Your friend, your family member, your co-worker. Someone out there needs this reminder that pride leads to destruction, but humility leads to restoration. Until next time, may you walk in humility. May you live in gratitude. May you find the courage to admit when you're wrong and the wisdom to learn from your mistakes. May you remember that true greatness comes not from exalting yourself, but from lifting others up. Not from taking credit, but from giving credit where it's due. And may you always remember the story of Nebuchadnezzar, the king who had everything, lost everything, and found something better than everything he'd had before. Good night or good day, wherever you are. Sleep well, dream peacefully, and wake up ready to live with a little more humility and a lot more gratitude. The story is over, but its impact continues. In you, in me, in everyone who hears it and takes it to heart. May we all learn from the king who walked with beasts and came back a better man. Blessings to you, friend. Until we meet again.